Hello. Today we're going to be doing some more fashion flat sketching in Adobe Illustrator. We'll start with a women's pant form that I found from a Google image search, and we'll place it in a locked layer with an unlocked layer over top. Now we'll make some tools to use. This is a basic stroke with a size of 1. We're going to use it as a size reference for the brushes we'll be making next. Here I'm making a right triangle with no stroke and a registration colored fill, and then I'm using the Convert Anchor tool to round the point. Next, I'll make it the same size, or roughly the same size, as the stroke I made for reference, and I'll drag it into the brush palette and choose the option of Art Brush instead of Scatter or Pattern Brush. I'll also make sure that I choose Hue Shift in case I want to change the color. Next, I'll make a different kind of brush. This one will be rounded on both ends, and I'll use the Convert Anchor tool while hitting the Shift key to make sure it's exactly the size I'd like. This is very similar to the previous brush, but a little bit different. Again, I'll drag it in to the brush palette, choose Art Brush and Hue Shift. Now we're going to start making the basic outline of our swimsuit top. This will be an underwire top, as is popular this season. When drawing a flat, it's often helpful to use as few anchor points as possible. This makes adjusting the flat a little bit easier. Here we're using the Convert Anchor tool to curve a few of the lines and give the top a little bit of life. Now, I'm going to copy and reflect the one side and then join it with the other side using the white arrow tool, Command J, and then Command Alt J. Now I'll just nudge it over a little bit to ensure that it's centered. Next, we're drawing in the underwire. It's nice to use the dress form because it already has the underwire delineated. Now we'll draw a little bit of a princess seam for shaping, again following the lines that already exist on the pant form's bust. For a little hit of color, we'll also add a little bit of piecing at the top, and then cut the line of the princess seam so that it does not disrupt that shape. To get the stitching correct for the underwire, I'm going to use Object Path Offset Path so that the shape will be slightly larger than the original line we drew, and therefore will create a perfect stitch line once we change it to a dashed stroke. We'll just adjust the size of the dashes and spaces and then it will look like a good stitch line beneath the underwire. Before we copy over any more, I'm just going to adjust the tops of the top so that it better mirrors the shape of the piecing we added before. Now I'm going to add a little bit of stitching next to the princess seam and at the top of the piecing. These stitch lines aren't absolutely necessary, but they do add a little bit of stability and some detail to the top. I'm also going to add some stitching at the bottom of the swimsuit top. This is where the elastic and stretch will be. Now we're copying all of the lines from the left side of the bust to the right side of the bust. This way we don't have to draw all of the lines twice, and they'll look correct. I've filled the shape just to see how it looks, and I'm adding a thicker stroke because I think that looks nicer. Now I'm going to add an optional halter strap. There will be a tab at the top of the bikini top that will hook in to the removable strap. Generally, these tabs come with the ability to fold back down into the bikini top and not be seen if the wearer desires to wear a strapless top. Now I'm drawing the hook that hooks the strap in. In the interest of time and ease, I drew it with the pencil tool, and now I'm adjusting the shape. I'm going to come back in once it looks the way I'd like it to, and remove a few of the extraneous anchor points. Now I'm going to come in and add a circle, or more likely an oval, so that there is a space that the strap can attach. The strap will loop through this and be stitched down. I use the Shift-M tool and then the Alt button to make a complex shape. Or rather, a compound path. Now I'm adjusting the loop so that it fits better with the hook. Using the white arrow tool, adjustments are easily made. This is the strap portion. Generally, this will be a spaghetti strap made from the same fabric the rest of the body of the swimwear is made. It will be made one ply on fold, stitched, and then turned inside out. Sometimes there will be stitching on the outside, but on this particular style, we won't do that. This is another time when using the dress form comes in handy. It's very easy to see exactly where the neck of the wearer would be when you're drawing on top of a dress form. Now I'm adding a little indentation where the stitch line will be, and I'm sort of cheating a little bit and adding the fold over in the back. Here you'll see the stitching, and I've used the eyedropper tool in order to copy the stitch stroke weight from the top piecing stitching on the bikini top. Now that I'm happy with the look of the removable strap, I'm going to copy it and reflect it to the other side. The next step will be to draw in the back of the strap as it loops around the back of the neck, since we won't be viewing the sketch on the dress form. This is easily done and sent to the back of the sketch, and with a few adjustments from the Convert Anchor tool, it will look as if it's circling around the back of a phantom neck. Because I didn't put a point in the center of this, the back neck of the neck strap will not be completely symmetrical, but I find that this is not always important with smaller pieces such as this. They're easy enough to redraw and to replace if necessary. Now I'm going to go back in and make a few small adjustments, and then I'll add in the seam that shows that this style was actually made one ply on fold, stitched and turned. I've done this by copying Command C and then Command F, the top line of the back neck segment, and then removing the fill and thinning the stroke. Now you can see how the bikini top looks, and we'll start on a high-waisted bikini bottom. There have been a lot of very attractive high-waisted bikini top and bottom options this season, and so I thought it would be fun to sketch that instead of your regular string bikini. Here again, I'm using as few anchor points as possible, and then using the Convert Anchor tool to shape the bottoms in the way that I would like to see them. Later, I'll go back in, like I'm doing here, and add a few extra anchor points for the purposes of fine-tuning the shape. When curving anchor points that will be at the center of the body, it's important to hold down the Shift key in order to avoid any strange points or curves when the sketch is finally mirrored. Here we're shaping the leg hole. As you can see, it's significantly lower than that of the delineated leg hole on the pant form. That is just a styling choice and can be adjusted to taste. Here we're copying and reflecting the left side of the body and moving it over and using the Command-J, Command-Alt-J function with the white arrow tool in order to join the two sides. Here we're filling the bottoms just to make sure that we like the shape. Now we'll remove the fill so that drawing in the details will be a little bit easier. Here I'm drawing in the front waist drop. The line you see at the top is actually an indication of the back waist. We'll copy here to add a stitch line to indicate where the elastic of the swimsuit bottom will be. Next, we'll do the same with the leg holes using the Object, Path, Offset Path option and copying the stroke from the waistband. Sometimes it takes a few rounds of adjustment to get exactly what you're looking for. But once you've got what you'd like, you can remove the fill, copy and reflect to the other side. Now that we've got the basic outline, we want to add in some details to these swim bottoms. We're going to add just a little bit of a princess seam, which will help with the shaping of the swimsuit bottom. Sometimes when there's more fabric to a swimsuit bottom, there's a higher potential for it to be ill-fitting. Therefore, adding some extra seams and piecings will go a long way toward fitting the curves of a woman's body. This is a seam with a single needle top stitch next to it. The top stitch again is not 100% necessary, but it does help to make the seam a little bit flatter and more stable. Now that we've got our swimsuit, I'm going to go ahead and start working on what I'd like to do to fill it. We're going to enlarge it, making sure that all the strokes are enlarged at the same time as the main body is. That's a very important thing to remember when enlarging or shrinking a sketch. Now we want to add a little bit of color. I'm going to make sort of a non-classic dot repeat. We'll start with one circle and then we'll adjust the color a little bit so that it's not quite so bright. With the next color, we'll just use the color settings to adjust it a little bit, slide that up and make it purple. And then we're going to also add a sort of periwinkle blue and change the transparency settings from normal to multiply so that when they overlap, the dots create some new colors. When sending a print like this out, you not only consider the pink, the periwinkle, and the purple as colors, but every time they overlap, that becomes a new color. So currently, this print would have pink, purple, blue, the color between pink and purple, the color between pink and blue, and the color between blue and purple. And also the ground color, which is white. I'm copy and pasting these dots around just to make a little bit more of a random repeat to add a little bit of interest to our swimsuit. Here I'm copying the repeat I've made thus far just to see what needs to be added. I've locked the white, which you'll see might become a little bit of a problem later. But what I'm doing here is making a manual repeat, and then I'll go back in and add a few more dots just to make sure that the repeat looks nice and isn't too weird. Here I'm going to show you the size of the repeat by creating a box that delineates where it starts and stops. Here I've chosen the blue dot as the side to side and the purple dot as the top to bottom. Now I've given the box a stroke just so I can see it, and I'm going to go back in and fill in a few of the gaps by copying and pasting a few more dots here and there. This repeat is obviously not perfect, but we're going to just be using it in a sketch. If we were sending it to a factory for them to be printing fabric, we would take a lot more time and care with creating the repeat. To make sure the repeat goes into the swatch palette correctly, we'll remove the stroke and fill from the box and send it to the very back. Then we'll select everything and drag it into the swatch palette. And you can see there it's at the very bottom of our swatches. Now we're going to fill our swimsuit sketch. You can see here that our little dot repeat is now inside of the swim bottoms. And we'll go ahead and also put it inside of the swim top using the eyedropper tool. Now we're going to make sure that we can use those little color block piecings at the top of the bust. We'll build out the shapes of each of those, and then we'll use the Shift M tool in order to separate them from the rest of the bikini top. You'll see here, this is when we're building out the shape. Then we'll select everything and use Shift M to create the new shapes. Then we'll Shift drag them over back into the bikini top and use the eyedropper tool to fill them, and then change the transparency effect back to normal so that it is opaque. Now, we want to make sure that the neck strap is also a fun color, so we're going to use the color from the color blocking so that it is a continuous line of the periwinkle color if the wearer decides to wear the strap at all. Also, we want to make sure that all of the little extra details at the back strap are made into the same color. and we want to adjust the stroke so that it is correct and thick enough to show that it's part of the overall shape. Here I've realized that I did in fact lock the white background, so I unlock it and redrag the repeat into the swatch palette and refill the swimsuit with the now updated and opaque print. And now I'm going to save it. And there you go. We have our swimsuit sketch filled with a sort of confetti dot print, and I'm screenshotting it. I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial and have found it very relaxing